10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. We've got not Leslie with us. We have Chad Richards once again.
The voice of two or three men.
Two or three guys agree with Chad.
Yeah.
The voice of all millennials.
The voice of a couple millennials. Most people disagree with him.
Yeah. Welcome.
How you doing, Chad?
Good.
Big week for Chad, man.
Big week.
Just moved into his very first home.
Yes.
Very first owned home.
Very first owned home.
He
yep.
was not homeless.
I was not. Yeah, I wasn't homeless. Yeah, we moved from Scripps to Rancho Bernardo. If you're not familiar with this area, it's about 15 minutes north. And yeah, we got a little spot in a cool little community, and yeah, we like it. We're stoked.
That's so great.
It was a crazy week, but I feel like we're finally unpacked and the house is set up, and we got like one or two more items being delivered. So I think by the end of May, it's end of April right now. We have one piece that's not coming till like May 20th. Shipping is just insane right now.
One piece. And what is that piece?
The bed frame. We're waiting for our bed frame. So now we're like straight college, mattress on the ground.
That's all you need, man.
Awesome.
That's all you need.
It's actually really comfy still.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Well, it's appropriate that Chad is moving into a new place because we are talking about lessons from the man cave. Or
all right.
Woman cave. No, you called it
Woman cave. No. My wife, she calls it the babe cave.
the babe cave.
Babe
All right.
cave. Because woman cave just doesn't have the ring, like doesn't have that great ring to it.
No,
Like
it doesn't.
babe
Babe
cave.
cave.
Bat cave.
Man cave.
Bat
Babe
cave. Is that what he calls it?
Batman calls it Bat
it the
cave.
Bat cave?
It's the Bat cave. That's
guess
where he
so.
keeps. That's where he keeps the car.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I looked up man cave.
Okay.
Okay.
Rules of the man cave, and I looked it up on Google. 9,430,000 hits.
Oh yeah.
That is
right.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so here were my favorites.
Okay.
We'll talk about them as we go through. All right.
All right.
Man cave. Here are the rules. My cave, my rules. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Scratch where it itches.
Gross.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
You right? All right. Respect the remote.
Yes.
I don't want
not
to go
steal
on. I don't want to go in there and see Good Luck Charlie playing in the man cave, right?
I've never heard of Good Luck Charlie.
No, it's a Disney Channel show. It's a little,
Okay.
little bit older, but
Yeah.
Okay.
that's
you
on
will
you.
when they've watched everything else.
It's all Coco Melon right
they'll
now,
ask
man.
if they can watch
Coco
that.
Melon. Wow. All right. Talking about feelings or issues earns lifetime ban.
Oh, okay.
Toilet seat stays up.
All right.
Do you guys have a in your house? Is there a law? Toilet seat has to go down.
No.
No.
Yeah, there is. And now my 3-year-old's calling me out on it, too.
Daddy,
you
fell in.
She's swimming around in
Yeah.
there. All because of Chad.
That dude.
Okay. Somebody explain this one to me. Selective hearing only.
Yeah, because...
You have the right to ignore whatever you
Okay,
want to
all right,
ignore.
all right,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I love this one. This might be my favorite. If something the caveman said can be taken two ways, and one of the ways makes you sad or angry, he meant the other one.
Feels like these are directed towards your spouse.
I like caveman.
Caveman, right?
The man of the man cave is the caveman.
Say whatever you have to during commercials.
Okay.
You know,
Unless it's the Super Bowl.
it's the Super Bowl, right?
True.
Like we talk, but it was the commercials.
Like, shut up.
Everybody shuts up.
I haven't
It's
seen
funny.
this yet. Yeah.
All right. Last rule: the man cave. I am in shape. Round is a shape.
Okay.
I don't know. You don't have a man cave, do you?
This right here is it.
This is it.
Yeah,
This
We
is
gave
it.
all
Jonathan-
houses are, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
Yes.
Right. So give me some.
Oh, no. I don't
What
have
is
any rules.
like? Define your man cave. What makes your man cave in your office your cave, Chad?
Oh man, I'm like Jonathan. I got the mood lighting that I can control. I got my
Mood lighting sound like the
my
Babe
fantasy
Cave.
football
Mood light. You guys both are definitely on the line between
Yeah.
man cave, babe cave.
Babe cave. I got a great monitor, but the one thing that defines my man cave is I have a 2-time fantasy football champion trophy.
2-time.
In my man cave. You know how you get that trophy, guys? You win first place, and
Oh.
I won first place 2 years in a row, and it's in my man cave.
Chad just sent me a picture of Austin. Austin Long used to work for us, right? This is
Okay.
the Austin we're talking
Yep.
about. And
Okay.
what does Austin have in his office now, Chad?
Austin has the Losers Trophy, which is a trophy that is also a toilet bowl. It is a toilet bowl trophy. It is big. I mean, we're talking like a little 2-foot, 15-pound trophy. And the rule is you have to put it in your office or your living room. And anyone in the league can FaceTime him at any moment, and he's got to prove that it's in there. And then the best part is if you got first place, you get to engrave it with whatever phrase you want.
Okay, so what was the phrase?
Austin, the whole year, he said, "How am I losing? I have the best wide receivers. I don't know how I'm losing." So what do you think that phrase is? I have the best wide receivers. Or no, but I have the best wide receivers.
Yeah.
So it's great. Shout out to
giant
Austin. I'll make sure he
loser.
listens to this episode.
Oh, so
Yeah,
great.
so that trophy's in West Virginia right now. That's
Yeah.
where he
Nice.
lives. We shipped it.
Nice.
I feel like yours is definitely a musician cave, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got guitars on the wall. I got a thumping speaker system
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, it doesn't stay in the office. That's the only thing. Sometimes I feel bad when I got it cooking and Chad's office is a mile away and he can hear
You
it.
can still hear it. You do have a couch. You and I both have couches.
Yeah.
I nap on this couch. I don't have a couch.
Chad does not have a couch, but
nap
I
on
have.
your couches.
You know mine. I got sports stuff all over there. I have
Right.
Luke Walton shoes.
You have
and
books.
Odell.
Yours is like
I have books,
memorabilia.
too.
Yeah, yours
I
is like
do.
memorabilia.
Odell Beckham's football. I have a football signed by the Steve Young, Jerry Rice 49ers.
Yeah.
I have a Tony Gwynn autographed Wheaties box with the Wheaties still in it.
Ooh.
I know.
We
it's
should
still
have some
shake.
Wheaties at some point. Just order those out.
All right, so man cave, babe cave, whatever. I'm going to define it a little differently.
Okay.
Okay? A man cave or babe cave is a safe haven that provides protection and peace from the chaos of the world.
Okay.
There's a verse that says, "And grace and peace be yours in abundance."
Yeah, it's kind of like you go in and it's like, all right.
Wouldn't it be great if that's what we are all creating? You know, the home that we are in, the dwelling, whether it's your office or your home or whatever, that when people entered it, there was a sense of grace. And I don't really have that. I have a couple of things that represent my home of origin. In my office, you probably have seen this. I have an American flag. My dad served in the military. He was a corpsman during World War II. He served in a place called Anahuac, and he has all the only stories I remember. Here's one story. Here's one story from his military service. As a corpsman, it's like a nurse, all right, and you're in charge of medical supplies. But
They
you're
probably wouldn't like you to say that, but okay.
You're probably right. You're probably right. But you're also in charge of doling out the cigarettes
Okay.
and the beer.
Okay.
It's funny.
Well, not
So
everybody.
everybody loves you.
Well, yeah, but not everybody drinks beer.
Okay.
So what they would do is they'd get a certain amount for every guy, and they would dole it all out.
Okay.
And then with the extras, they'd just put it aside.
Okay.
And so they decided that one day they were going to start off in the morning and they were just going to party all day with all the excess. And like one guy made wood alcohol, which is, like if it doesn't make you blind, that's the best thing you can say about that. Well, they started at 9. By noon, there wasn't anybody conscious anymore
Okay.
on this island.
Sounds
Those are the
Wow.
stories. Those are the stories that I
terrible.
remember. I know it does sound
Wow.
awful.
He didn't sound like a really great nurse, to be honest. Like that's not what my nurses are doing
Well,
for me.
but I will tell you, they
like
felt
nurses.
no pain.
Yeah.
In my office, I have a coffee mug. My dad liked his coffee. He liked nothing in it, though, just like Jonathan. He liked
Yeah.
it thick and black. And
Yeah. Yeah. Chew on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Chew
right.
on it. Oh, man.
But what I remember most, let's take that coffee mug, for example. He drank coffee, but I also remember the day that he got angry at my mom in the kitchen and he threw his coffee mug against the wall.
Oh wow.
Okay.
I also remember my mom walking around for a week with sunglasses on because she got hit by my dad.
Yeah, wow.
And so there's a quote, I probably have read this to you before. Gordon Dalby says this. It's my favorite dad quote. It's this: a little boy cries from his father's wounds. A real man cries for his father's wounds.
Wow. I've never heard that quote. That is really profound.
So
That's
I
good.
think over the span of my life,
That's solid.
that I've kind of learned, so my dad grew up and his dad left him when he was like 3, and he didn't see him again until he got married. He was traveling up north, and for whatever reason they were in Fresno, and the dad was going to be there, so he met his dad again for the first time when he had just gotten married to my mom. He was raised by my grandma, and she had to put him in and out of foster homes, and when you look at his life, you can understand how he ended up drinking and pouring all of his life into work and being that kind of angry personality. You add military in there, doesn't always hurt, but a lot of times it can push you into that next level of anger. And so, and then God got a hold of my dad's life and saved his soul, and we became very, very good friends after that. But and I still, of course, bear those scars. But at this point, like, I'm crying because of those wounds that my dad got. I'm able to understand that.
Yeah, you've found a certain level of healing from the wounds that you carried when you were a little kid that you grew up with, and then you get to a point where it's like, no, you mourn for your dad, and you wish that he didn't go through that to end up that way. Right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you have anything to throw into this, Chad. I know with Jonathan, we get a lot of great stories about your dad.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because with my dad, it's like he never had time to screw it up because, like, I was 14 years old when he died. So, and he was 36, I think, 36 or 37. And so I never got to see his like, I've learned more about who he was in his 30s by going through my 30s. Like, the things that I never knew as a kid, like, you go through it and you're just like, oh, wow, he was a guy like me. And I'm like, I am in nature what he was. And so to understand just the battles that like, I didn't get to walk through any of that with him. So as you learn, you're just like, oh, my dad wasn't who I thought he was in some ways. Like, he was a great dad, but like, it wasn't like he was coming and telling us, this is what you're going through, or this is hard to go through. We weren't having those conversations.
Yeah, right.
I think my brother a little bit more so because he was a little bit older, and then my brother was going through some pretty heavy stuff, and my dad was consumed with that during that time.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I love the show. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys watch This Is Us, but they're on like their 3rd season now. They spend the whole 1st season, showing you like the best dad ever. I mean, you're convinced by the end of the season, this is the guy I want to be like. And then I love it because then towards the end of that 1st season, they start getting into like the stuff he's dealing with behind the scenes that his kids just don't see.
Right.
And I thought it was just really beautiful because it just shows that, even what seems like the most perfect dad behind the scenes, he's still battling, fighting for his marriage, dealing with wounds from his childhood. And so, yeah, it's really powerful. I know a lot of our listeners will probably relate with the dad from that movie or show.
There are a lot of people like me who you got handed dysfunction. You don't look back and you have all these great memories of that growing up span of your life, right? But I think there's not any of us, it doesn't matter where you come from, that doesn't want their current cave to be one where people have grace and peace.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So how do we get there? I've got a couple of ways that, because everything is a sermon when you're a pastor. That's just the way it has to be. And I want to look at 1 Peter 3. We actually, last podcast, we looked at 1 Peter as well.
Yeah.
And it says this: praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. And what I take from that is there's no old dysfunction that can't be traded for a new inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like all that old stuff, the whole reason why God came down to this earth is to be able to free you from that and give you a new inheritance, and not only like a new way to do your cave now, but also eternal inheritance as well.
Right.
Right? Couple other verses. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. Psalm 94. For the Lord will not reject his people. He will never forsake his inheritance. So how do we get that inheritance? What do we have to do to make that change?
Yeah, I think it's like when I came to God, that was one of the things that sold me on it, right? Was because I'm like you, I had tons of father wounds, just not a great upbringing with him, and still carry those today. Not all wounds become scars. Not everything, scars over. Sometimes it's like still fleshy to the touch, and so whenever I get into those conversations with people, some things just hit me, or I'll be driving and I'll have a remembrance of my dad, and and it just causes you to swell up and tear up. And, I think I still have a lot of wounds that have not scarred over with my father. But that was the thing. One of the big things that sold me on Jesus was that, dude, God, he will replace my earthly father. My earthly father sucked, but there is a God in heaven that wants me to learn from. So now I don't look to my dad for fatherly advice. I look to Jesus for fatherly advice, and I look to the good men around me that are great fathers for fatherly advice, because God has given me a new inheritance and a new family.
Yeah.
And it is just one of the best things about the Christian faith.
Yeah, I think it's valuable to have that breakaway. Like when we talk about kind of man cave, that there is a place of acceptance, even if that place is only you and Jesus in that place. Like that there is a place that you can go to, and I don't know that everybody really experiences that or understands that. Like sometimes in all of our desperation to be accepted, whether it's from family, friends, in all of our desperation, there's a power in understanding and learning that place of acceptance in the presence of God.
Yeah.
Because you can go from there and not be accepted, and still somehow be all right. Like you can push against, and I think about seasons of my life where I've been at church, and maybe me and my wife are going through something, and like for whatever reason, I've had those seasons where it's like, and I've had these conversations with my wife. Like sometimes, I've been in ministry pretty much her entire time being married, so she highly values those times that I get to just sit next to her at church, right? Because a lot of times you're just busy, you're doing stuff. Yeah. And but I remember that there was a time where I told her, I was like, sometimes I just need to sit by myself, because the by myself worship moment for me, and that can be in my office, that can be in my car, that by myself, I am always given grace. And sometimes when I sit next to you, I'm not. And that's like, and that's okay. I think sometimes, like, she's got to deal with me, and that's okay to have those kind of, but you need that place that you can go where you're just given grace, and you're just restored, and you're built back up. And so I just think that that's an important thing. I think it's important for us to find that. So, I mean, and you're talking about family, scars from your parents, your dad, that kind of thing. And that almost feels like the time that you learn it is when you realize, like, I may not be getting this from my dad.
Yeah. Right.
So,
yeah. Okay. Let me give you another, rule of our man cave. This is the man cave that leads to peace. All right. And that's discipline and difficulty flow out of a heart of love, not anger. In my home, discipline meant, harsh words and frustration and anger and, throwing coffee mugs. But that when God does it, there's still discipline. But the core of it's different. Right. Okay, let me read some more verses. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you've had to suffer grief and all kinds of trials. They've come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes, even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him, and even though you do not see him now, you believe in him. So what he's saying is, I love this line. Is this where he talks about momentary light affliction? I don't think so, but these people have to go through all kinds of grief, but there's a purpose for it, right?
Yeah.
It's to grow them. It's to establish them. And in a perfect cave, that's what we're doing. You know, when we're dealing with our kids, we're dealing with them out of love and care, and we give them discipline so that they become the better people that they need to be.
It is funny. There's a passage that okay, we're gonna step into some mud real quick. There's a passage where Paul talks about the discipline that we received as children and how none of us liked it as a kid, but we're all grateful for it now. And I think of when I was a kid, me and my brothers, mom was stay-at-home mom, no running water, no electricity on a mountain with the closest neighbor a mile and a half away or 2 miles away. Like, this is us. And so, my mom would be going crazy. Five kids, 4 boys. When we lived on the mountain, it was four boys. And it was like, go to your room till your dad gets home. Like, you'd have those moments. And that was the worst thing in the world. It wasn't to go into the room. It was till your dad gets home. And my dad comes home from a full day of work and a good 45-minute drive, and he walks in and, like, you go deal with your boys. And it was like, what'd they do? And he wanted the Cliff Notes. He didn't care about the details. Like, And then it was like, get out here. And it was, go find me a stick.
Yeah.
That was it. Go find me a stick. And we're bawling. Today, that's called child abuse.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
In my life, I would not trade it for anybody else's upbringing.
Right.
Like, I just look at, I felt like in every way growing up, when I got into high school, I felt like I had an advantage. I was like, you guys are soft. Your parents in the name of love did nothing. My parents in the name of love made sure I didn't go that direction.
Yeah.
And so that in this, it's funny. Matthew McConaughey wrote a book, and I just recently read it. He says the same thing. I mean, and his was straight up child abuse, like an alcoholic dad, like duking it out with you. And he's like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But he says, I choose not to raise my kids that way, probably because he'd go to prison. But
right.
But it's interesting because oftentimes, like, obviously there is discipline out of reaction, out of intoxication, out of anger, and then there is discipline out of love. And when it's done out of love, I'm just, I don't know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah, so I think here's the difference for a lot of people is they get discipline, but there is no love with it.
Exactly.
Like, where my discipline, I think, hurt me in the long run was, you guys know my story. My dad had, like, clinical OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Not like some people think they have OCD because they like their shirts folded a certain way. This was clinical. He was supposed to be on medication for it, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so he would clean the house. He would vacuum about 6 times a day. Before we went anywhere, if we went to the movies, everyone had to get in the car so he could vacuum the carpet because he needed to come home to the lines in the carpet. He had a schedule, so I knew when he was coming my room to vacuum. So if I wanted to do any, bad things, I knew exactly when to do it before he came into my room. I could smoke weed in there or whatever I was doing.
Right.
Not smoke weed because he would for sure smell it, but things like that. And so where I got hurt the most was, I would want to help out at home because as males, we want to know that we're good enough. We want to know that our dads are proud of us. Mm-hmm. And so I would, want to help out the dishes. I'd put them in the dishwasher and then he'd come out, he'd pull the dishes out, throw them, break them, and say, you're effing doing it wrong. You're never doing anything right. I would hang up a shirt. Shirt had to be hung up, tag in the back, hanger to the left. And if a shirt was not hung up the right way, we're getting it taken down and saying we're not good enough. Like, you're not doing it the right way.
Right.
So there was never any love. It wasn't like, hey, let's sit down and talk about it. Hey, I'm sorry. I was, really frustrated in that moment, and I do love you. Right. It was always, you're not good enough. And so I think that's the difference here between the love that you got, because I'm guessing your dad after sat you down and say, hey, buddy, you know what? I do this because I love you.
Right.
We have parents that never did that for us. And so I think that's the difference between this verse of discipline and love and with no love.
Right. Yeah.
So
This is a vulnerable podcast, man. These are tough places to go for
I thought
me.
we were just going to be talking about our TV
Yeah.
in our man
So
cave.
I had this situation just this weekend. So my daughter's driving home from college, and something goes wrong with her car,
Yeah.
and it's starting to lose power. So I get in it, wondering, maybe there's a fuel issue, whatever. No, I can tell it's transmission.
Right.
It's unmistakable,
Right.
and it doesn't even have 100,000 miles on this car yet,
Mm-hmm.
and the transmission is being a problem. I look it up. There's a problem with it, and I had a moment that day, and it all revolves around the gift that I gave you for your homecoming gift.
Okay.
I bought him a drill.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I'm about all this stuff happens concurrently.
Right.
Okay, I'm trying
Right.
to put this all together. Like my daughter's coming home. I haven't heard from her. I'm buying the drill for Chad. Well, I get the drill up. It's like $100 drill. It's good, but it's on sale. Well,
Right.
I bring it up to have it ring up, and it rings up at $44.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's amazing, right?
You owe me $60.
I guess so. Well, I was fully willing to pay the 100 and bring
Yeah.
up 44. And the
awesome.
guy behind the counter says, "Oh, this is ringing up wrong."
Oh,
Well, what do I
really?
care? Like, I don't care. This is
That's
not
what he
my.
says?
Yeah, like he goes, like, I don't care. It's
I
not
make
my
the same.
company. I'll just give it to you.
Right.
Well, so then I walk out and I have all these guilt feelings, like,
Oh, man.
like did I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
rip off the company?
Right.
I never feel bad about ripping
Yeah.
off the band.
So because I have
That's
this, like I feel like I need to be really exacting in my truth
Yeah,
with God.
right.
I just really want to make sure I do the right thing.
Right.
Well, I come home and then the transmission's going out, and I jump to this. Like, God, are you punishing me
No
for
way.
this? Right?
Wow.
Right?
I didn't know people still
and
did
it's,
that.
And it's all
At your age.
it all comes back to that
Wow.
family background, and
Right.
Yeah.
I have to sit in that moment and realize that my God loves me and values me and cares for me.
Right.
He's not looking for an opportunity
Right.
to punish me with a $3,500 transmission because I got a good deal.
Right.
Which is weird. That's super. Like, you went vulnerable. I feel
Yeah.
like
Funny.
stupid even telling the story.
Yeah.
Mostly because you laughed at me.
Well, no, but I mean that's just like
I laugh at
I've heard
everything.
a lot
That
of
was Chad's
people.
fault.
I've heard a lot of people feel like that they're being punished for a prior sin they committed.
Right.
You know, you did something, and now God's kind of they're believing in like they've sowed bad things, and so they're reaping bad things.
Right.
It's a common.
Because the other side of
commonly held
that is
belief.
you go back into Home Depot or whatever, and you're just like, hey, could you figure out what the price of this? I think I paid too little. And then you pay the 100, and then you go home, and then your transmission still goes out. And at that point, are you just like, God, come on, I just did something for you, owe me.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
good.
because
Yeah.
those
Okay,
things are
so
sometimes tied
let's
together.
close the loop, right? Let's close the loop on the story.
Okay.
So Nissan knows there's a problem with these transmissions,
Right.
And everybody has told me you got to go to Nissan because maybe you'll get a deal,
Right.
Well, in the meantime, I had talked to my buddy Bill who works at Dixie Line. I
Okay.
told him the story,
Yeah.
and on Sunday I left church and I went back to Dixie Line.
Wow.
And they confirmed the price.
It is $44 $44.
Yeah,
44?
they
Yeah, there
confirmed
you
the
go.
price. I almost wanted to buy 7 of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right.
Because
Give
it
'em out
was
to
a
everybody.
screaming deal.
Yeah.
So then I'm waiting to hear from Nissan
Right.
how much they're gonna are they gonna charge me for the full transmission?
Right.
Because I've talked to corporate, or are they going to give me? Sometimes they give you 90-10, 80-20.
Right.
Well, they gave me 50-50, which I was disappointed with.
Right.
But by that time, I had worked out this relationship with God. Like I'm okay with it. It's
Right.
it's fine. I'm not mad at God. I don't think He should have supported me because I did the right thing or any of that.
Right.
But it does that my mind. I have to have those long walks with God to figure out
Right.
that if He does something, it is
Yeah.
for my good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is for my benefit.
Yeah. 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 No, it's good.
Okay, this guy, you're right. It's way too vulnerable. Okay.
Not for me.
We're
I
gonna
haven't
get
said
kicked out of
anything.
Jonathan's man cave.
Yeah, right,
We don't talk
right,
about
right, right.
feelings in here.
Okay, I have one last one.
Okay.
Third rule of the man cave: our love relationship with our dad leads to a love legacy with others. And Peter ends his whole message he's giving like this: now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for one another, love one another deeply from the heart.
Yeah, dude, our love relationship with our dad leaves a legacy. Yeah. So how I am seeing this rule, our love relationship with God leads to a love legacy with others.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Break that down a little more for us. What do you mean by that?
So I believe and I've said this many times, if all you do in your life is break the dysfunction that you got and turn it into function with your family, that's your legacy. There's lots of ways to leave a legacy. I golf with a couple of guys that make so much money, and they have a money legacy, and they have a fame legacy. But I don't think that at the end of the day that's the legacy they really truly care about. Because we played golf together, and Ken Blanchard is one of the guys that golfs with. Another guy who has a big company locally that does really well. It's a nationally known company that everybody would know if I said the name, but I don't want to call him out. But we're sitting around. They're not talking about the great glories of work. Mm-hmm. They're breaking out their phones and they're showing me pictures of their family.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
One story I'm sure I've told is I heard a guy speak and he was saying, "Man, I climbed the corporate ladder and I realized at the end that my ladder was leaning against the wrong building."
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
you hear that story a lot with people in corporate America too.
Yeah. So how do we get to this space? So maybe there are people who are listening who go, "Man, my legacy wasn't great. Mm-hmm. What I got growing up wasn't good." How do I get to this point where that legacy shifts for me?
For me, it started with identifying my wounds, going back into my past and trying to connect the dots of, okay, how did this affect me? So identifying the wounds and then sharing them and trying to find healing from them. And it all had to happen for me in community and with therapy too, with counseling. Because you can't connect those dots. You need a counselor to come alongside you to ask the hard questions of, hey, how do you think, your dad throwing shirts at you, how do you think that affects you now? And do you take that into your marriage? Do you put unbearing expectations on the people around you? And so being able to work through those things, I think with a counselor, with your family of origin issues, that's what they call it in therapy, is family of origin. Being able to work with that with a therapist, I think, is the most powerful thing I've done in my life. Because now I can identify when I come home and, there's little perfectionistic tendencies in me. I can go, okay, is this realistic, or is this, I call my dad's name was Rod. Is this Rod Chad? Is this stuff that I got from my dad?
Yeah, I think something that I've seen, and it's an area that, again, it's not my default. I have to try to be intentional about is there's almost like a strength in having more questions than answers, right? Like going into a situation, like we always feel like, well, if I'm going to contribute and love people well, then I'm going to be the rock. I'm going to be the solid thing in their life, and I'm going to be the one with all the answers, and I'm never going to show my cracks. And weirdly, by having more questions than answers, you actually can love people better, by allowing other people to speak into your life and allowing other people to contribute and actually going to, you guys, I feel like do that really well of, hey, I'm wrestling with this. What wisdom do you have? And asking for that and seeking that out. And because, and weirdly it draws people to you. By, hey, I need help too. Draws people to you. So I just think that that's one way. Like, we don't think of that as loving. Like, I think about my mom was, and she still is, she's a rock. Like, she was the single mom, 5 kids. And everybody else was like, your mom is the toughest lady in the world. Like, like I'd hear that kind of stuff growing up. And she was the one who's like, you better never do this when you're married. And you never, like, she had answers more than questions. Yeah. And there came a point after I'd moved away and I'd gotten in ministry where she would come to me, and this is where we're at now. She would come to me and she would ask me things. Yeah. And that tore down more walls of like, she would like, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I was reading this, and what are your thoughts? And like, she would let me speak into her for the first time. And it was like, that was like the moment where I'm like, oh, I'm part of this world. I'm part of this adult conversation now. I'm not just the kid doing things wrong.
Yeah. Yep. I've leaned into that with my older children, and go, hey, I'm going through this.
Right.
And I need your wisdom. What would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
And that really does break down that wall. And another thing that I've done too with my kids is I've tried to let them in on the backstory a little bit. Mm-hmm. And once they kind of understand where I'm coming from and what, where my dysfunction comes from or how I lean or whatever, then there's some grace as well.
Yeah.
But when it's all, hey, do what I say.
Right.
I don't need any back talk from you.
Right.
It's always, when the parent is always the authority.
Right.
It's really hard to function in a relationship like that because, kids do have some wisdom.
Yeah.
It's not all good.
Right.
But some of it's okay.
Right.
I asked Ava for wisdom the other day, and she told me, "Can you give me some candy?" I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so we're not at the wisdom part yet.
That's awesome.
But you're certainly at the grace part.
Yeah.
With your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, the only wisdom I would give to you is be on the ground as much as you can. The more time you can spend, the less time, when it's less time, all you're doing is telling them, don't do this, don't do that, brush your teeth, pick up this.
Right.
My father-in-law said, "Yeah, man, having kids is a young man's game," and I never understood why until I have 2 kids and all they want to do is wrestle and be thrown around. And you're always carrying them, so I gotta have a strong back for these kids.
Oh yeah, in the pool, man.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we used to do in the pool was crazy. I think anything else that you would add, guys, about how to create that legacy with your kids? Any things that you guys are doing specifically to kind of break out of the old legacy, start a new one?
Oh yeah, I mean for us, it's keeping my daughter in the Christian faith. No one in my family has. My brother's saved and no one was, and so showing her how awesome the church is and can be and how great of a community is. And it's crazy, man. You see the results in your kids. She is so social and loves being around people. The other day we asked Ava and we said, what do you know about God? Just like see what she said. And she said, he lives in my body. God lives in my body. And I said, who told you that? And she said, Miss Sandy, some lady at our church who is watching her a lot, is always hanging with her, taught my daughter that.
That's
and that
so
is a
good.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes, like I had this thought on our last podcast too, is that we're figuring it out as we go as much as everybody else is.
Yeah.
We're leaning into the truth that's been passed along to us. But at the same time, it's like I've got 3 kids and they're doing great right now. And we're holding on to that, and we're just like, okay, we're about to enter a new season with all 3 of them. One of them's in the adult world for the first time. One of them is about to finish up high school, and then one of them's about to go. I mean, she's in 6th grade, and she just got her first day of middle school because COVID let her back to go to school.
Right, and braces.
Yeah, and braces. So it's just these new seasons of.
Well, and that season's brand new because you've never worked with a teenage girl before,
right? And a
you
lot
have
of people,
with boys.
a lot of people have made that like, oh, it's gonna be harder, and you're just kind of geared up. But at the same time, there's this like, well, we've cultivated a relationship. She's an amazing kid, and one thing that I have, this is just a little piece of wisdom that I've picked up and tried to hold on to is never. I try to never get caught up in the they're a teenager. Like they're a teenager, so they're gonna I don't ever want to be that voice. It's probably true, but I don't want to put that on them. I heard that about me, and I'm like, I was a good kid. Like I became worse when I got out of high school than I was when I was in high school. But I heard typical teenager, and I'm sure I had those things. I just didn't know I had them.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, what I feel like I'm like the exception to the rule here as a teenager.
Wow.
And so I don't want to project that. And that's something with my kids. Like I get it. They're going to grow up and there's going to be boys in the picture pretty soon. And there's already boys in the picture, but I haven't been invited into any of that yet.
Right.
So
we've had this conversation too, that we have chosen to raise our kids in a place where they can question their faith.
Yeah.
They don't have the option whether or not they go to church. Like you don't give them the option of whether they go to school or whether they brush their teeth. You don't give them any options.
Right.
Why give them the option there? So there was never a conversation, but allowing them to question their the ideals and what have you, and open conversation,
Right.
rather than, and we were also never the only G-rated,
Right.
only Christian music
Right.
family either.
Right.
Because
Yeah, we've been the opposite. Part of that was because I had a season of that as a kid, and we were like, as soon as mom and dad left, is like we had the radio. We had, it's just like just change the station. You can listen to whatever you want. So and it's really, really hard to crack down on any of that stuff now.
Yeah,
Like it's like there's always a way.
Yeah, that's great.
So-
Okay, do you guys want me to read you a story as we close?
No,
Yeah,
yes.
let's hear
Okay,
it.
I'll read you a story. All right. Young man was getting ready to graduate from college. For many months, he had admired a beautiful sports car in a dealer's showroom. Knowing his father could well afford it, he told him that's all he wanted. Now, as graduation day approached, the young man waited signs for that his father purchased a car. Finally, on the morning of his graduation, his father called him into his private study. His father told him how proud he was to have such a fine son, told him how much he loved him. He handed him a beautifully wrapped gift box. Curious, but somewhat disappointed, the young man opened the box, found a lovely leather-bound Bible with the young man's name embossed in gold. Angrily, he raised his voice to his father and said, "With all your money, you give me a Bible?" And he stormed out of the house, leaving the Bible. Many years passed, and the young man was successful in business. He had a beautiful home, wonderful family, but realized his father was very old and thought perhaps he should go visit him. He had not seen him since that graduation day. Before he could make arrangements, he received a telegram telling him his father had passed away and willed all of his possessions to his son. When he arrived at his father's house, sudden sadness and regret filled his heart. He began to search through his father's important papers and saw the still new Bible, just as he had left it years ago. With tears, he opened the Bible. He began to turn the pages. His father had carefully underlined a verse. As he read those words, a car key dropped from the back of the Bible. It had a tag with the dealer's name, the same dealer who had the sports car he had desired, on the tag of date his graduation, and the words "paid in full."
Kid's an idiot.
That's crazy.
But
great story, though.
do you think that there are times, I certainly feel this, I have had to overcome this, that your assumption about your Heavenly Father is that he's not really cheering for you. He's not really in your corner. He doesn't really want to give you the best possible gifts. He just wants to give you a Bible and make you follow a bunch of rules. To be able to break that pattern in your life and to realize that this God loves you, cares for you, wants beyond you, like you can't even imagine all the great that he wants for you and the blessing he wants to pour out on you.
Yeah.
And he wants to give you a sports car.
Well, that would be great too. Yeah, and if you can kind of break through all that old stuff,
Yeah.
man, the kind of joy and peace that you, not only you get,
Right.
but you're able to create that peace and purpose in your own family as well.
Right.
Feels like a really powerful, poignant way to end right there.
I was waiting for Jonathan to go, and that's all we got for today.
There we go. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.